Looks like we're live.
All right. Well, my name is Darius Shanfar. I am the finance chair of the Albany City Industrial Development Agency. We'll call this meeting to order at 12:53 p.m. on Wednesday, August 12th. First, for roll call, I think we're all here. We have myself, Lee Eck, Tracy Metzger, Dominic Casolaro, I believe Robert Schofield, and Susan Petto are with us as well from the IDA board. With that, I would call for a motion. We've all been supplied the minutes from the last Finance Committee meeting. I call for a motion to waive the reading of the minutes and accept them as presented.
So moved.
Tracy, Lee, any questions, issues, changes? All right. Then all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All right. From that, we're going to move. We have no report from the Chief Financial Officer today, so I'll move straight into unfinished business, 1211 Western Ave, which we just had a public hearing on minutes ago. I'm going to ask Andy to talk a little bit about it. We've received a lot of public comments relatively recently. And there have been, I think, some changes in what they have presented. So, Andy, your show.
Can I just ask, were all board members present at the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think so, yeah.
Sarah?
I just want to continue my recusal from this project out of an abundance of caution for a potential appearance conflict. And so, Tammy, if you can move me into the waiting room for this matter and bring me back in afterwards, I'd appreciate it.
So I think all the members were attending the public hearing.
Right.
Great.
All right.
Thank you, Darius. As we all know from our attendance taking there, numerous representatives of the project applicant for 1211 Western Avenue are present here at this Finance Committee meeting. I would like to go through a summary of the project, the benefits sought, and the community benefits of the project as well. Back in January of 2020, the agency received an application for assistance. That application was updated and a revised request was submitted to the agency in June of 2020. This project was discussed in detail at the Finance Committee in July, and a public hearing resolution was passed at the July board meeting. As we all know, the public hearing just occurred. IDA staff has distributed all written comments submitted. If any came in during the public hearing itself, we will sweep our inbox for that and disseminate those as appropriate. With that, I'd like to go into a quick summary of the project. I will not reread an entire description as we did at the public hearing, but instead I will start with the estimated real property benefits. The revenue gain to taxing jurisdictions, the status quo taxes at the non-homestead rate are approximately $567,000 per year. The projected impact of the pilot payments is $8.4 million with a total net benefit of about $7.8 million. The property value increase, the current value sits just under $500,000. The anticipated improved future assessed value is $19.5 million with a net increase of approximately $19 million. The total estimated investment is $35.7 million. The community benefits of the project we will touch on in more detail as we go through the framework scoring momentarily.
Andy, could you repeat the status quo taxes over the pilot, please? The length of the pilot, the total?
Sure. The status quo taxes, $566,000. I think that is actually on a annual basis here. Let me look at that.
I don't think so.
What's total?
That's the total.
Correct. The
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
It came out in your net benefit, but if you could just repeat this, the total status quo amount and the net benefit, please.
Status quo, 566,909. And the pilot payment impacts is about 8.4 million for a net benefit of 7.8 million.
Thank you.
You're welcome. One update we have had is we received as we do for all projects, a economic impact analysis from CDRPC. That had not been received prior to the Finance Committee meeting last month. I'd like to briefly go through the findings of that analysis. The temporary construction impact over the estimated 2-year construction period, including the direct, indirect, and induced effects, total approximately $37.4 million. The permanent operations impact countywide on an ongoing basis per year are estimated to be $2.5 million, including direct, indirect, and induced effects. The project is estimating to create 5 FTE, full-time equivalent jobs, with 90 construction jobs. As part of the request of the applicant is requesting sales and compensating use tax exemptions, mortgage recording and transfer tax exemptions, and real property tax exemptions as well. As part of that request, supplementing staff analysis, as we do for projects that are over $25 million in total investment, at the direction of the committee and board, staff received a third-party review for the appropriateness of the requested level of assistance. Of note, the consultant who completed that study is with us today on the line. And barring any other questions about the summation of the project, I'd like to move on to how the project scored through our framework analysis and touch on each point that the project received.
Andy, can you just touch on the independence of the project analysis that was done?
Absolutely. So we have about 2 years ago, I believe, the IDA established a pre-approved pool, if you will, of third-party consultants that are capable of conducting in-depth financial analysis of projects. When a project comes to us and we're instructed to get a third-party review, we reach out to all of those pre-approved consultants. We receive quotes back and we engage them on an individual basis from there. The consultant is then provided with the application, the applicant's pro forma, and the request at hand, and they conduct a independent review of the request, whether or not it's appropriate, and depending on the findings, if it's not appropriate, potentially a suggested level of assistance that is more appropriate or reasonable, which was the case here. And the consultant's findings came back in line with staff's, that the original request was able to come down to a reasonable level at where it stands now. And that is the application you see in front of you today.
The study is the independent study. The independent WZHA is chosen by the IDA, and but it's paid for by the applicant, correct?
That is correct. The IDA reimburses the consultant, and the IDA is reimbursed by the applicant. Yes. So in the end, the applicant does pay.
That secures the independence of the study.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Running through how this project was scored through our evaluation and assistance framework. For an identified growth area, the project received 1 point for being in an existing cluster, which is deemed education. The project received 1 point for permanent jobs to be created, for estimating 5 full-time equivalent jobs to be created. Under construction jobs to be created, the project received 2 points for an estimated 90 construction jobs on site during the construction period. For financial commitment, the project received all 3 potential points as it is larger than $25 million in total investment sitting at $35.7 million. And to round out from 7 to the 10 points to make this project eligible to be evaluated through the framework, the applicant has committed to 3 community commitments. The first being our MWBE commitment, where 20% of the value of construction contracts will be performed by MWBE entities. Regional labor was their next point. 90% of construction jobs will be filled by local residents. And the third, for the 10th and final point, City of Albany labor, 15% of the construction jobs will be filled by City of Albany residents. At the conclusion of the project, those community commitments will be reported to staff and analyzed. And that is the 10 points.
Excuse me, Andy, were there any points for distressed area?
There were no points for a distressed area. The project is located adjacent to a distressed census tract, which is part of the eligibility for IDA assistance to begin with. However, it is not located in a distressed census tract.
Thanks for clarifying that.
You're welcome. Darius, barring any other questions on what we've gone over or what has potentially come to the public, if there is any questions or conversations surrounding any proprietary financial information contained within the forma or within the third-party analysis report, we can go into executive session to discuss those things at your discretion.
Okay. I have a couple of questions I just wanted to go over. One, all the approvals for this have been, completed, and it's all set to go as far as planning and zoning and all that.
It's my understanding this project has, they're in communications with planning right now, and they had at last checked at least conditional approvals. I would love one of the project representatives to speak if possible.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Please.
Hi, this is Jeff Almenquel. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for DMG. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we had a meeting last week with Chris Spencer and Brad Glass. We reviewed an updated submission, which we believe conforms to the requirements issued by zoning and planning. They were going to review some minor changes that were made and get back to us. So we understand that by Friday they'll have a final decision as to any issues. But at the meeting, they didn't raise any issues. It seemed that everything was in order.
Okay. One thing that was mentioned in one of the comments about a pending lawsuit. Is anyone aware of a pending lawsuit on the owners with regard to this project?
Darius,
I can address that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a lien that was placed by the architect,
Okay.
and we're in discussion with the architect to resolve. The previous architect, we're in discussions to resolve these issues.
All right.
As I recall, that was in the application.
That is correct. It is called out. Yes.
Okay. And the building's currently vacant?
It is.
Okay. So the jobs that were there have already moved on.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions or issues or any thoughts from anybody else on the board?
Yeah, Darius, was Dominic. Can you hear me?
Sure. Go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, one of the other things that was brought up earlier about the utility lines being buried, is it an Albany Fire Department recommendation? Has that been clarified yet?
Hi, this is Jeff Amengwell again. We have a design that was signed off and approved by Nat Grid, not only to bury the power lines, but also worked out all of the low voltage lines as well. So all of the overhead lines are designed and approved by the utilities to be relocated underground. And that was submitted to Chris Spencer and Brad Glass as well.
And the question that was raised about that too, is that going to be done during construction, prior to construction, before the, the construction vehicles and things go in there? That was one of the concerns that some of the people had, was that,
Yes.
including Bacardi, the overhead lines might be in the way of the project.
Right. So it's going to be done in coordination with construction after the demolition phase is complete and during the early phase of site work. And so the burial of the lines will be completed before the building starts to rise out of the ground.
Okay. Another question, Darius. I'm not going to mention any numbers, but and it's right in the executive summary that's in there, that's public, about the rents. We won't talk about money or how much they're asking, but the hybrid that was proposed by the third-party review, has that been considered? Have you discussed that about what your initial proposed rents were compared to what the third-party review has recommended?
Yeah, our plan has been to always be in line with the market space. So, these things continue to get evaluated. Will be evaluated again prior to opening. But right now, they're based on the comps in the community. So whether it be a hybrid or not, we're going to follow that guidepost.
Okay.
Anybody else? Dominic?
Yeah, well, this is more of a general thing for this project, but also for other projects and another one that's in front of us today. So I don't want to repeat myself, but I do have quite a few concerns right now with this project and the financing based because of the economic condition, because of the COVID pandemic. There's been reports in newspapers and media and things that I get emailed to me about rental incomes going down, about apartments, kind of people moving out of cities. In fact, there's a big article on that today in the Post New York City. One moving company handled 1,000 moves in a week. And it's not just New York City, it's a lot of urban areas. I mean, Albany's not that big, but it does catch up. And the fact that yesterday I was told by the planning department that the owner occupancy rate in Albany is now down to 30%, which was about 36, 37% just 10 years ago. And in the South End alone, which is what my meeting was about with planning, with the lawn planning out of Saratoga yesterday, the South End home ownership rate is at 17.3%, down from 30% 20 years ago. And I'm wondering if the IDA, if with all these approvals that we are giving for all these proposed apartment projects, not just this one, but all the other ones, if we are contributing to the loss of home ownership in the city of Albany, which is well below the national average by more than 30 points, and that it keeps dropping year after year after year, if maybe we need to look at what we're approving, what projects we're accepting, what benefits they really will have to the city of Albany, because if we're down to 30% on home ownership, those are the people that are paying all the taxes, school taxes, property, county, paying the water bills, paying the library tax, paying the waste removal fees now, and it's a shrinking base. And I know we discussed a little bit of this a couple of meetings ago about having a study done on what the economic impact of COVID will be in the immediate future and a little bit further down the line. Colleges are reporting they don't expect to ever get back the numbers on campus that they've had. And these apartments, this particular one and also the one, the next case, both talk about targeting students or graduate students as one of the main populations that they're going to use to fill these apartments. Some colleges are going to be going out of business. Some colleges said that the online is probably going to end up in the near future being maybe 50% of their teaching now, instead of having these kids on campus. That seems to be the trend. And so I'm wondering if we need to do, before we look at all these projects and start approving more apartments, and apartments that are based on college students coming back, even if they do come back, if we need to get an economic impact analysis of what COVID is doing, has done, and what is projected to do in the very near future, and maybe a few years down the road. Because these projects, maybe 5 years from now, maybe Albany only has 10,000 students on campus now, and with their dorms, what's going to happen then? St. Rose, maybe they lose half the students. I don't know, but I know there's been reports out there that a lot of colleges are predicting that. A lot of colleges have already admitted they're not going to be able to stay in business much longer. So I'm really concerned, without knowing the possible economic impact, to make these decisions, and maybe 4 and 5 years down the road, these projects we've ever approved come back and say, you know what, we can't meet the pilot payments anymore. We're only at 60% occupancy. The college kids on here, people have moved out of the city because of fear of pandemic. They're moving back to the suburbs. In fact, just in today's business review, there was a report, developer, Tasky is building 130 single-family homes in Half Moon. That's only 20 minutes from Albany, just over the bridge to Saratoga County. 130 single-family homes. And he says the reason is because people want to, and this is a direct quote, people want to get out of the cities, close the quote. So I think we need to look at these before we start making these decisions, and then 4 and 5 years from now, we're having to review all these and having the developers or who's ever owning these properties 4 or 5 years from now coming back and saying, there's no way we can meet this. Our vacancy rate is too high. We're not getting enough operating income to meet the pilot payments, let alone other payments. So I'm extremely concerned right now about the economics. And I know I brought it up a couple meetings ago. We discussed having a study done. Some members said, let's put this off, it's too soon. Well, obviously, based on what is happening right now, I don't think it's too soon. And that's my opinion. So I'm really concerned, and I am very constrained, to use a gubernatorial word in many of Vito's, gubernatorial veto. I'm very constrained to approve any projects until I have a better grasp of what the economics are going to be in the very near future and in a couple of years down the road from this. So that's my spiel.
Do you have a proposal or action item to actually?
Well, I would like to make a motion that we, as we talked about a couple minutes ago, that we put an RFP out for a very quick turnaround. To get responses back. And this was talked about a couple meetings ago. It should be in a minute, so people should be called to have this study done as soon as possible, so that we know what we're looking at.
This is Tracy. In my opinion, it's still too early to really fully understand the impact of COVID. Not that we'll ever maybe fully understand it, but there's not enough data right now. I'm obviously in real estate. I'm watching the trends. I'm reading everything I can. I think that, office space is going to get hit hard. But I just think it's too early to hire someone to complete a study, as Dominic is suggesting. I don't disagree with a lot of what Dominic has said. I mean, I have grave concerns over a continued decline in home ownership in the city, but at the same time, I still want to see, and I'm excited that we have developers that are still willing to move forward with sizable developments like the one we're talking about right now, and obviously the next project as well. So I don't think a developer would move forward with a $35 million project if they were not confident that it was viable given COVID. And perhaps the developer might want to speak to that.
Please.
Hi, so this is Jeff Amengual again. And yeah, obviously we're fully aware of the impact of COVID and it's having on the market space. We still feel very positive about projects in and about Albany, not just student housing, but multifamily projects. You know, if you look at COVID as a long-term impact, I agree. It's very hard to determine at this point what that might be. But we think that certainly by the time this project's delivered, things will settle out. We think that, you know, this project's upscale. It's for a particular niche in the market space that, you know, wants to have really exciting amenities and well-appointed units. So it's always a number of market forces that will indicate whether or not a project will succeed. We think we've aligned those forces in a positive direction. And we, again, feel that Albany, both short and long term, is a very good investment. In fact, we're continuing to look at other properties in Albany for development, for multifamily and other types. So overall, I would say we're extremely excited and positive about this project.
On this topic, and I mean, I'm excited about how the developers are still interested. But my concern, again, we're having issues now with the Quakenbush Square project with the hotel. They can't get financing. Are we going to have other projects that we've approved, and then down the road and shortly down the road, the financing doesn't work, the economics is no longer feasible for the financial institutions to invest, and the next thing we know, we have a partially built building or a hole in the ground that is going to sit there for who knows how long before these places can find the financing. And that's why I'm asking that we need to have an idea. I mean, not to go on an individual thing, but a family member of mine just moved to Worcester, Mass, got an apartment that was renting at $1,800. The landlord lowered it down to $1,325. The reason he gave was management company that have hundreds of apartments because of all the colleges there, was because they were afraid the college kids are not coming back, and he did not want to leave his apartments empty. So he's willing to go down 30 to 35% on his rents for every apartment that goes vacant. And I spoke to him myself, so that he can keep people in his apartments and not have them go vacant. Now, Worcester's a big city. It's twice the size of Albany, 200,000 people. It is a college town, you know, has a lot of people coming, you know, immigrants there from like Albany does. A lot of different languages spoken, a big Vietnamese and Hispanic Latino community. And that's what he done. This was just in July. I'm not talking 6 months ago, I'm talking July. That he dropped that price 33%. And the reason he gave was because he doesn't want to see those apartments go vacant. So if it's happening there, it's going to be happening in other places. It's not just one thing. And that's my concern and why I think we need to, I'm afraid to wait longer to find out what the economic impact is. I'm afraid to go down to Quakenbush Square and have a hole there for another 2 or 3 years. I know it's impacted the pump station. I've talked to the owner of the pump station. Having that hole there has impacted him. It hurts the businesses and the people that are already around there. And I really think something, we need to find out what's going to happen.
All right. I share a lot of the concerns, and one of the concerns about this project in particular, actually, is that what happens with the, as Tracy mentioned, the reduction in office space. You're going to have this empty shell that's going to be sitting there if this project does not go through, or financing falls apart, or we disapprove it, or the final approvals don't get provided. But I think I will say I agree with Dominic in one sense. I'd like to see still some questions and like to see some of these last things get completed with planning and everything before we move forward with it. I don't know, move forward with a vote. I would propose tabling this to the next finance committee meeting to settle some questions. And also, I think this is one that has gotten there. especially from some of the responses and the letters that were sent today, a lot of misinformation is out there
Yes.
despite our best efforts. And I really think this warrants a response to those who have submitted comments, probably with one general letter that can encompass the points that are raised. But I think it's important that we do that before moving forward with a vote on the project. I don't know how anybody else feels.
There's just one more thing too. I mean, we have the next project on the agenda is coming for a new application and changing the original proposal, and because of taking out the commercial aspect of the project. Again, that is a direct result of COVID and the economic downturn. There's some projections that somewhere between 25 and 40% of restaurants alone will not be open. There's projects that 60% of minority and women-owned businesses will not be able to reopen. So these are the things that we need to get a handle on, I think, anyway, before we start making these financial decisions that, you know, 6 months or 2 years down the road could backfire on us. Plus the fact that everybody watches, I mean, everybody has their eyes on IDAs now. The governor, the state legislature, the state controller. I mean, who knows? Maybe the state attorney general is going to get involved next. She seems to want to get involved with everything. Looking at IDAs. So, I mean, I don't want to be approving projects and then, you know, they call us and they audit us and say, how the heck did you approve this project with only 3 jobs and knowing the economic downturn and it was depending on students to fill the apartments and it's 60%, and now they're coming back to you for a revised pilot for even more tax abatements because of what you approved 2 and 3 years ago never came to fruition because of the economic downturn. So that's another concern I have, is with all these eyes that are on IDAs right now, that a misstep could put us in a very serious situation with the state oversight people.
Dominic, I just want to say that we've always had the state oversight. And I think we're very, very cognizant of the role we play and the important role that we play in economic development, you know, in the city of Albany. And we will continue to do so. We make the best decisions that we can at the time that we make them.
Right, no, I agree. I think we do a real wonderful job.
Yeah, and I think it's certainly something worth looking into more, and maybe we can have some discussions over the next couple of weeks to get together a proper motion for the next finance committee meeting to actually, you know, flesh it out a little bit before we can move forward with something like that. But again, I think one of the issues for us, I certainly always hear concerns about how the public views the IDA, but you know, we don't. You know, these aren't city dollars that are at stake here. You know, they're tax abatements on projects that essentially wouldn't get done but for our involvement with the project. And the flip side of that coin is that without the IDA benefits, the properties and the parcels languish like the Palladium did for 15 years, and the way that this one 1211 would likely languish as an office building going forward, in part because of COVID. But I think if we maybe flesh it out over the next couple of weeks, we can put together something for that aspect of what you're talking about, to see what, if anything, is appropriate and possible. But as for this project itself, 1211, is there any other comment, question, or?
So Darius, you're looking to table this so that we have some time to
Yes.
You know, obviously review some of the comments and submissions.
Yes.
Okay, so
That's the way I
wondering how the other board members feel about that.
Indeed.
Sounds like Dominic would like to do that.
Yeah, I would like to say, and I also, to follow up with what Darius said, somebody's written comments, there's like Darius pointed out, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of, you know, things that aren't true or that people write because they don't know. Do we answer those and explain why the rent's not public because of this pro forma? It's not public information. and how it was, I mean, I answered two myself because I got them sent to me individually about the, the third party and how, and I explained that it was the IDA is the one that picks the third party. It wasn't the developer of the project for the conflict of interest. And I try to explain these things, but do we try to do that with the
Dominic,
the written runs
yes.
and contracts?
That's what Darius was suggesting, that
Yeah.
a letter be drafted that hopefully incorporates and addresses the concerns, multiple concerns that we have heard from many people, and then obviously send that response out.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think we have to do that.
Lee,
So I want to interject. I understand being cautious, and I will go along with, the board with that. I want to mention the construction aspect and job creation, something that was kind of overlooked in some of these letters. Generally, buildings are not built for 30 years. They may possibly be maintained for 30 years, but construction is a short-term project. That being said, those jobs are vital to the residents, and on this project in particular, the commitment for three, the local job creation, not only local residents, but the City of Albany residents working on the project, that's a big commitment. I don't have a lot of projects in my recollection that have committed to three of those factors. The hit at 705 Broadway to construction is, noted as well, but hopefully we can get that project back on the books. That being said, the projects that do feel that they have the investment to go forward as far as the construction end, although it's short term, City of Albany needs those jobs. So I just want to mention that.
Good point.
thank you. Anyone else on 1211?
If I could just,
Go ahead.
hi, so I just wanted to note that, given the sort of what I'm hearing from the committee staff, we are happy to prepare a summary of the comments that we received and just seek out responses to those comments. And I just wanted to address also the point from Dominic, who also look at sort of kind of the overarching sort of larger economic issues that you raise and figure out how to tackle that at a later meeting.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess we're not taking any action on 1211 today, and we'll table it to the next Finance Committee meeting. All right. So next order of business, I go back up, scroll up, Broadway 915.
Darius, can I ask one question?
Yeah, sure.
When we write the or address the issues at hand, can we make sure that we note that the board tabled this?
I think there needs to be a motion. Does there need to be a motion to table this?
I don't think so. I just said we're just not taking any action at this point in time, but we can do that.
Okay, fine.
Unless Joe tells us otherwise.
Well, I think, and I'm back. I was in a remote location that was particularly remote, so excuse me. It certainly is a better paper trail if you have a motion to table.
Okay.
But clearly the minutes reflect the sense of what the board is doing. So from a procedural standpoint, you have it covered both ways, but I think it's better housekeeping, candidly, if you actually took a motion to table, because then there's formal action and the minutes are clear as to perfectly clear as to what you planned on doing.
Okay. I guess I'll call a motion to table the unfinished business of 1211 Western Ave until the next Finance Committee meeting.
I'll move it.
Dominic, second. Lee, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Everyone? Okay. All right. On to Broadway 915. Andy, are you there?
I am. Thank you,
All
Derek.
right.
Broadway 915 LLC, I believe Mark Aronowitz, the project applicant, is in attendance with us here today.
Very patiently.
Yes, this project, as we just alluded to, had come through the Finance Committee and the board previously towards the end of 2019 at the beginning of this year. It had progressed through the public hearing stage, at which point shortly thereafter, the COVID-19 crisis hit. And again, as we alluded to, Mr. Aronowitz made some changes and modifications to the project and the request at hand. And I will turn the floor over to Mark to reintroduce, if you will, his project on Broadway.
Thank you, Andy.
Go ahead, Mark.
Everybody hear me?
Yep.
All right. So I guess to start off, certainly, some of what Dominic has been referring to is something that all developers are very concerned about. And certainly when you're risking, in our case, over $5 million in equity and personally signing on loans, we're going to do as much due diligence and need to be absolutely comfortable that we feel the project will be able to move forward. Unfortunately, in the instance of the Pioneer development with the hotel, the world changed with COVID, certainly. And one of the markets that got hit by far the most was the hotel industry as well as the retail industry. Fortunately, the multifamily, and again, we're not through this yet, and we don't know, all of the impacts, but the multifamily industry has remained relatively strong, not only in the capital region, but throughout the nation. For many years, the multifamily industry was underserved, significantly, severely underserved in the capital region. And over the last couple of years, we've begun to catch up. And one of the marketplaces that still probably is underserved is the urban, and we have to take it, in terms of what's going on with COVID. Certainly a lot of the larger cities may see a decline. But I think due to the size of Albany and Troy, some of the attributes still outweigh some of those concerns. And I think, obviously if a vaccine comes along in the next 6 months, that's certainly going to change a lot of people's, for the better, their safety, and then hopefully a better economy going forward. One of the other things, I think Dominic mentioned, was about the student housing. Our project, and I think I sort of gathered from the previous project, that developer, that our project is not geared at all towards student housing. Ours is a higher end project with, increased amenities. And maybe we would have some, medical residents or Albany Law School students. But as far as undergraduates, we will have none. Our project at Steuben Place Apartments, we don't have a single undergraduate student, and probably wouldn't even consider it in terms of a rental. So I don't consider that to be, a concern on our project going forward. Now, with that being said, based upon COVID, we went back in and totally underwrote our project. And, we are concerned that, it's not the same project, and it's not going to have the same income as our previous submission. As Dominic alluded to, I think, the restaurant business, small retail, going to have significant struggles, and survivability is questionable for many of those owners, which is truly unfortunate, but that's what it is that way. So we had to take another look at our project, and we said, hey, we don't think the retail, it's hard enough as it is in the last 3 years. I've been working in downtown now probably for 35 years. And it's always been a struggle for the most part, attracting retail into downtown, and it continues to be. With COVID, it's, what's happening, it's probably chances of renting retail space is not great. So we looked at it and we said, hey, is there a better use for that space? And in our minds, yes, increasing our parking density, converting the parking, some of the parking, there will now be 30 indoor temperature controlled parking spaces. There will be increased, area for, tenant amenities, for bike storage, dog wash station, another, smaller room that could be rented for, small gatherings for families or whatever, or residents within, the guidelines of social distancing. And that those things, although we're going to lose $90,000 in income off of the retail, those things are the things that are going to help us rent the apartments in a quicker fashion. So, we did leave our absorption the same because we've still seen in the Albany marketplace, there's still a tremendous demand for apartments. Our project at Steuben Place is 100% leased, almost as quickly as we have a move out notice, we're able to re-rent the units. I have not confirmed this, and Sarah, you may know more, but I heard that the Kenmore project is 50% pre-leased and they haven't finished construction. So there's still a significant demand out there. Now, again, we re-looked at the project too, not only from, losing the retail, and we will partially offset the loss for the retail income by increased fees for parking. However, it's still a net loss. We also looked at, what do we think the impact's going to be on the ability of tenants to pay rent? And we did decrease our asking rents by 5%. And in our pro forma, because we feel like it's going to be more difficult to get, the top of the market. We also reduced on average the rent increases, going forward from 2% to 1% as a conservative model. And then lastly, since our last application, the planning department came out with the requirements for the affordable housing units, which there will be 4 in our project. And those requirements are significantly more restrictive than what the thought was previously on what that requirement would be. So that was an additional loss, potential loss of income, or not in potential loss of income of over $30,000. So, annually. So the net effect is our income projection is now down over $130,000 than what it was initially. And due to that, we need additional help, to make this project a reality. And, in the pro forma, our 20-year average return, cash on cash return, excuse me. I don't know if you lost me there, but I apologize.
Don't think so.
No, you're okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So again, going back to timing too, critical things in timing. Right now, interest rates are still attractive. If you're a strong developer, you're still able to get loans, but it's certainly much more difficult. There's certain banks now that won't do 10-year loans, whereas 3 months ago they would. So we feel we bring that depth and experience, where we will be able to work with lenders to make the project a reality. But if we delay and continue to do studies and, this gets pushed off, the way we're setting it up now is we're hopeful, to get through the IDA process in the next, 2 months at the most, have approval, complete our construction plans, which are about 50% done over the winter, and do the bidding over the winter so we could start construction in the spring. And it's going to be very difficult for all developers that they have to maintain budget. And if we get into delay where we're not able to start construction until the fall, and now we get into winter conditions, because we haven't been able to enclose the structure, that's an additional hit to the bottom line. And if you look at the pro forma, I think our average return over 20 years is 7.5%. It's marginal. But we're still willing to move forward based upon, what we've asked for. The other major concern, and projects get delayed or come up later after 21? Or I guess 22, with prevailing wage. You add on another 10, 15, 20%, whatever it is for prevailing wage onto this project, it's over. It's not going to happen. So, we'd be very concerned about any, potential delay in getting, the IDA approval.
All right, thank you. Andy, do you have anything to add? I lost my my materials here on my computer due to technical difficulties, so I'm not quite sure where we're at. Do we need any motion for this today? I don't recall there was on the agenda.
Everybody froze on me. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah. I froze too. People still there?
I'm here.
Oh, I'm here.
Yeah, it just says that it's unstable.
Okay.
Internet connection is, I just got a note.
Yeah,
That might be good for me.
I thought I was talking about you, Darius, but it's the internet connection.
You beat me to the joke.
I tried.
So do we have a motion for this? Was that on the agenda? I don't recall that there was a motion.
So this is a project introduction. I see that Andy is still not back on audio or video. A couple of things to note with this, we are treating this as a resubmission because it is so different from the initial application that had come in. The request in front of us currently has 2 significant deviations from what our standard deviation requests from UTEP would be. It's related to setting the base assessed value as well as the abatement schedule that's being requested does not match the assessed value per unit that was provided by the letter from the assessor's office. So we are going to be looking at this with additional review. So we have some additional questions. We've already contracted with Camoin, one of the 3 pre-approved analysts to start doing this review. We're going to continue with that. If the committee or board has any additional questions for us to sort of work through with Mark and his team over the next month, we will be able to chase those answers down and provide updates back to the group next month. But this was a project introduction to help answer some early questions and outline any additional questions that we have going forward. No action necessary today.
Terrific, thank you. Anything else on 915 Broadway or Broadway 915?
May I just ask a question? At what point will there be a motion regarding a public hearing?
Usually the next finance committee meeting, I think. Correct, Sarah?
That's correct. That would be the
Yeah.
first opportunity for that.
So it'll be 2 months before the public hearing?
1 month. 1 month.
So
2 months before the hearing, yes.
It's typically a 3-month process from introduction for projects that are requesting standard abatement, and we can go through this again offline. I know that we're trying to get a call set up to walk through next steps as well.
All right, anything
Just
else?
so I'm clear though, the next finance committee meeting, you'll talk about it again, possibly put forward a motion for a public hearing, which would then happen the month following.
Correct.
And that would be the first opportunity for approval or denial of the request.
All right, so then after that, the full board meets just like you did with 1211,
Right.
Correct.
right? Versus the full board of the finance committee in terms of making a recommendation to the full board.
The finance committee makes a recommendation to the full board, but the, as it was here today, all the members are usually at all the meetings.
Right.
Right, and it actually could go to the resolutions of the approval could go to the very next, the next week. If the
Right.
finance committee, it doesn't have to wait
From the
another
finance
month.
committee to the full board.
Right, it could just be just the week next, following Thursday.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Thank you very much, Mr. Aronowitz.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Mark.
Next on the agenda, we have Clinton Avenue Apartments 2, project introduction for that as well.
I gotta figure out how to get out of here, sorry.
Top left corner, hit leave. Red button.
Somehow my screen got screwed up, but
Somebody kick
I'll
him
figure it out.
All right. Thank you, Darius. Sorry,
Andy, you with us? Okay,
I dropped off there momentarily. I apologize.
Yeah.
For the issues.
so did I.
Um,
All right, go ahead.
as Darius said, this is quote unquote phase 2 of the Clinton Ave rehabilitation. I'll note that numerous representatives of the project applicant are with us today. And I'll also note that it is certainly a much different project, if you will, than we saw in phase 1. It consists of both the rehabilitation of blighted properties and also the new construction of a mixed use building. So certainly a little bit different than what we saw. And with that, for the full introduction of what the project will be, I will turn it over to Home Leasing.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. My name's Adam Driscoll. I am one of the development managers with Home Leasing, and our team on the Zoom call here, we have Jennifer Higgins, who's also a development manager with me at Home Leasing, and then Brett Garwood is also on, and he is our CEO. And we also have Linda McFarlane, who is the executive director of CLF and ACES, and is our partner in this project. I just wanted to just introduce Home Leasing, who we are. We're based out of Rochester. We have a development team. We have a, am I freezing up or am I okay? Okay.
You're okay.
We have a development team, a construction team, and we do all of our own property management. So currently we have 25 communities throughout New York State, and one in Pennsylvania, one in Maryland, roughly about 2,300 units. And we take great pride in our communities and being a good and long-term neighbor. We feel phase 2 is a wonderful complement to phase 1, which is, I'm excited to say we are looking to finish the 70 row homes, 210 units in October, which is a very, very exciting project for us. And we feel that phase 2 here will be a great complement. It is a little complex, phase 2, and I was wondering if I could share the screen and just kind of walk through one, I guess, just, can everybody see the screen?
We can.
Yes, no, yep.
Okay, so my hopefully my arrow is moving the same. I just wanted to show kind of the span of our properties. 78 Clinton is located at the red star here. Coming up is 133 Clinton Avenue. They're both row homes. Next here is 163 Clinton, which is a vacant former school church that is vacant. That is part of the project, be 13 units. And I'll show some photos about each one as well, but just wanted to quickly show you. And 266 Clinton, which is a vacant parcel on Clinton Ave. This is new construction that we, in partnership, will be a mixed-use building in partnership with ACES, and I'll let Linda touch on that, what the commercial component to that as well. And then 303 and 307 Clinton Avenue. So 303, 307, 133 Clinton Avenue are under control or under contract with the land bank. And we own right now 78 Clinton. All 4 of those row homes are condemned. And then the school is also vacant as well. Stop share. Okay. And I'm a little new at the sharing screen, so apologize if I'm, I just wanted to show as well, just some of the conditions of the property. So this is one of the row homes, and I'll go quickly through these, but I just thought it's an opportunity to be on Zoom to take advantage of some visuals. And these are the conditions of the row homes. And then this is the school, the interior of the school. It also is deteriorating, and the roof is leaking pretty bad, and the 3rd floor is in. Oh, sorry, I'll go back on that one. So, and I just wanted to show some pictures of actually the phase 1, which will be very similar on the row homes in the school, the amenities and the finished product, as well as the new construction. But I just thought it was beneficial just to show you some photos of the finished product, which, as I'd mentioned, we'll have all 70 completed in a few more months.
Outstanding job. Thank you so much for your investment.
Well, thank you. And thank you for working with us on phase 1. It's very much appreciated.
Wow.
Thank you. I have one question. One of the concerns that people often have, often bring to us, is about gentrification. My understanding is that the phase 1 project has essentially been rented to people who are in the neighborhood already, people from the community.
Hi, it's Brett. If I could try to answer that one. Yeah, one of the things that happened when we first looked at the first phase of the project, we talked to the Arbor Hill Neighborhood Association, and that was absolutely the first thing that they said, this is a big concern. The other thing that we heard is we want our community to improve, right? And so as we make this type of investment, we want to try to create both those things. So the entirety of the project is regulated in terms of incomes. Every single resident that was living in these 70 row homes, which was about 80 or so, was not displaced, right? Some have moved on their own, volition because life, have life changes, but everybody returned to a renovated apartment or will return to a renovated apartment without a rent increase. And all the units are going to be regulated at a variety of incomes that are affordable. And I think most of the units are being occupied by people who live in the community as well. So we are providing that. But I think it's also important to note that we also allow for the improvement of the overall neighborhood, right? So even as some market rate housing may occur over time, our 210 units will be forever affordable, right? So you really do solidify among a lot of vacant units permanent affordability. So even as the community improves, even if it were to improve substantially and gentrify, that will not impact the affordability of the units that we have been part of.
Thank you.
Dominic, so how far down do you go? 60% median, 40%, 80%? What's your, how far do you go down?
In the first phase, it's a combination of 50%, 60%, and 80 to 90% AMI. The vast majority, I think 32 of the 210 units were affordable at under 60% of area median income.
And another question, I know you use low income tax credits and other government programs. Is any, I'm not really familiar with all those, but is there a possibility, I know you were on earlier when I was talking about the low numbers for home ownership in Albany, 30% citywide, 17.2% in the South End, as of yesterday. Are the programs, even with the low income tax credits and with the affordability, that these units, especially townhouses to 3 units, that someone could buy with the affordable income somewhere down the road after 10 years or 20 years or whatever, it would stay affordable, but if they would be turned into home ownership units with rental income properties, or does it have to stay strictly leasing?
So yeah, I think effectively these will be rental apartments, but there are a lot of townhomes. One of the things that excited us about, on the property, our units will remain rental. We'll be the owner, hopefully forever, and we plan on forever. But one of the things we liked about this area is there's the other people doing other things, right? So Habitat's been involved and they have created some homeownership opportunities. And I think the fact that we've eliminated some of the properties, not eliminated the properties, but renovated some of the properties whose condition was so horrible that they could have never become home ownership, right? That we've invited maybe created a more inviting environment for somebody to take on home ownership in one of the other townhomes, right? Because nobody wants to buy and be a homeowner of a townhome where next door it's completely collapsing. So we've kind of taken care of some of the things that might prevent home ownership otherwise, but these will be rental housing effectively for decades.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments?
I just wanted to also share, we have all of our local approvals through planning and zoning, and we have our part 1s for the SHPO historic tax credit process. Those have already been completed, and we submitted actually a couple weeks ago our part 2 for the historic tax credits. And this is a 9% application through HCR, and we plan on submitting our application in a week and a half, and we're very excited to. We've had some preliminary discussions with the state and had some positive feedback, and I didn't know if Linda, if you wanted to talk a little bit about the ACES program.
Yes, hello. The incubator portion of the building is going to be used for minority and women-owned startup businesses, furthering the work that ACES has been doing for a number of years in Albany. We're going to have storefronts that are shallow in nature, so large retail space is not required by our startup businesses. What they're going to be doing is having display windows in the front and in the rear, being able to produce handbags, clothing, different types of retail. And we have found that that is more in need, even with businesses that have a strong online presence. They also need to have some retail space available. We've been speaking with Albany Barn and possibly having some of that space available to the artists affiliated with Albany Barn. We're going to have an anchor tenant. We have been talking to a couple of different neighborhood communities to determine what is needed. The communities would like to see a pharmacy. They would like to see a full service financial institution. And there were a couple of other ideas. So we are reaching out to different groups to try and meet those needs and get a solid anchor tenant that would be well used in the community. We're going to have some co-working space. We're going to have 10 to 15 individual office spaces as well. And one of the very exciting things we're going to be doing is having a drop-in daycare, working with the Child Care Council to have it a training ground for individuals interested in opening daycare facilities. Empire State Development is very excited that we're going to be operating in that capacity because there is a statewide shortage of daycare slots available. So that's a summary of the incubator side. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
If I may, just Dominic, with the incubator, I like the idea. Have you talked to like the United States community immigrants and refugees and those groups? Because I know a few years ago we were approaching my area, the city, 2nd Avenue, about possibly opening up a storefront where the refugees, immigrants, can make, like you said, make their own handbags or the kind of clothes, they shawls or whatever they, that the community, whether they were Burmese or coming from Latin America, could use as a way to build up their own economic, foundations. It never panned out in my area, but it was actually suggested to us by some people that had come here as refugees. So I wonder if you had looked at that as a possibility of a community that could rent from you.
Dominic, actually, we've been speaking with the Refugee Welcome Center, and there are two needs. One is for, as you mentioned, handmade types of things, and the other is for commercial kitchen space. So we had been talking regarding a different site for it. We very much.
Are we losing Linda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if she's unable to come back on, we'll make sure to get you the details that she was talking
Yeah,
about.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But we are
Any other
excited that
questions?
this brings the project to beyond a housing project. It's a real economic development project, allows the ACES to expand by 12,000 square feet.
Sounds great. And the work you've done so far in the city has been terrific. So
Thank you.
look forward to getting more information and moving this project into the pipeline. All right. Nothing else on Clinton Avenue Apartments? It's after 2 o'clock. I don't know if we can or want to table other business for the agency until the next meeting, or if it's something we can put to the committee as a whole, to the ID as a whole, the next meeting, or if we want to continue.
We've had you guys all since noon, so we can all of this can hold until the board meeting next week if you wish.
All right, then I would prefer to do that.
Thank you, Darius.
No problem. I have a beach to get to, so. So if there's anything else, nope. I guess I just call for motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, Tracy, Dominic, all's in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, bye now.